So here we are, base 10 multiplication. We're just moving along in multiplication, and we're thinking about all these different skills that we can build around our multiplication. And so let's kind of get into this and talk about, like, what does it mean when we talk about base 10? And if you remember base 10, if you remember, this really goes back to like place value, and it's also just like the foundation of everything we do with our counting. It's the idea that 10 of one unit makes another, right? If I was counting by ones and I have 5 1 or 10 1, excuse me, 5 10, that equals 110, right? These are my base 10 blocks. So then if I had like 10 tens, 1 2 or excuse me, 10 20 30 40 50 60 70 80 90 100, right? That's the same thing as a 100 block. And that's what base 10 is that 10 of one unit makes the next, right? And we see that in place value, right? We're talking earlier, like if you saw this in one of the earlier videos, if we had a ones place and we have the tens place, right? And my ones, here's my ones. And as I move from one place value to the next, I always get 10 times bigger because it takes 10 of those units. And that's true if you look at, well, 10 or 1 times 10, well, that equals 10, right? That's that movement of the next place value. And if we had the next place value, I guess that'd be hundreds, right? We're going to get 10 times larger, and think about that. 10 times 10 equals 100, right? So really, when we think base 10, it is that we're always getting 10 times greater. We'll just do the last one for fun. Why not? Because this is thousands. Then we can see again, we have the 100. We get 10 times greater when we move to the next place value because of base 10, right? Because it takes 10 of them. That's why it takes 10 of them. So 100 times 10, well, that's 1,000. 1,000, not 1,000, 1,000, right? So that's kind of base 10 in general. So what does it mean when we talk about base 10 as multiplication? And that's this idea that we're just multiplying numbers, and let's look at the pattern here, based on getting 10 times greater. 3 times 1, well, that's 3. That's the identity property, right? Well, okay, what if we said 3 times 10? That'd be 30. Notice, already, I got 10 times larger here, and I'm getting 10 times larger here. So if we did the next one, thinking that'd be like 3 times 100, right? Ones, tens, hundreds. Well, that's 300. And you can see what's already happening. This is 10 times larger. So we could say the next place value, 1,000, 3 times 1,000. Well, that's 3,000. Guess how much larger this is? 10 times larger. Oh my gosh, you're amazing, right? And we got space, so let's do it. 10,000. And that would be 30,000, right? So this is base 10 multiplication. And the reason this is so helpful is because the reality is we're going to see problems like this, right? And it won't always be with a 1. It could be, but maybe it's not. And so let's just kind of think about what we know about this. If I think about my single digits, 3 times 7, right? Single digit multiplication is so important. I know that's 21. I know it, right? But it's not 3. It's actually 300, right? So I'm actually 100 times larger, and 100 has 2 zeros in it. So my answer needs 2 zeros in it because my answer needs to be 100 times larger than the 3 times 7. So there's 3 times, or 7 times 300 is 2,100. So let's look at that some more. Like, what does this mean? What does this mean? So let's do like 5 times, I don't know, the 4. Sure, whatever. Okay, oh, no, not 4. We're doing zeros. So 40, sorry. So 5 times 40, right? Well, again, if I just look at what I know, 5 times 4 equals 20. But it's not a 4. It's a 40. So it's 10 times greater. It's got 1 0. So I need one more 0. So my answer is 200, right? So I don't know. Let's say 600 times 20. Same idea. Like, look what we're doing here. And this is so cool because these numbers look so large, but we just think about single digit. 6 times 2. That's 12. And then look, I got 1, 2, 3 zeros. Those are those place values, right? So I just need 3 more zeros in my answer. And that's 12,000 as my answer. Remember when you write your answers to get that comma in there, right? Those are those periods we talked about. Like here's the ones period and the thousands period. they're separated, I should say, by a comma. And I noticed in some of your quizzes, you're not putting in commas and it counts it wrong. So remember your comma when you write out these answers. So let's do some more. Let's do 70 times 30. And here, I'll do like 3 of them and you can work on them, pause it and work on them, and then we'll look. Let's do 9 times 400. And let's do 2,000. Oh my gosh, 2,000 times 600. We'll make a fairly large one there. Okay, so you of course paused this, and now you're coming back and comparing your work. Now we already talked about this one, single digit, 7 times 3 is 21. 1, 2 zeros. So 1, 2 zeros. There's my answer, 2,100. Okay. 9 times 4. Well, 9 times 4 is 36, and I see 1, 2 zeros, right? Because it wasn't 4, it was 400 that we were really multiplying by. We looked at it as 9 times 4 and got 36, but it wasn't 4, it was 400, which is 2 more zeros, which is why we put 2 more zeros on there, right? I hope that's making some sense conceptually why we do this. So again, let's look at the single digit. 2 times 6, well, that's a 12, and then I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, remembering our periods, right? Those are the groups of 3 numbers. We call those periods. I hope I didn't confuse you to say period while I was writing a comma. But we separate those periods with a comma. That's in one of the videos we talked about, so that's why I'm reviewing that. So this would be the work that we do with multiplying by base 10. Let's look at just one example that comes up where people can make some mistakes with that. And we kind of addressed that earlier, but I want to go over it again real quick. Let's look at something like 50 times 600, okay? So what might happen is like keeping track of all your place values, your zeros in this case. So again, always notice I underline. Like I even do this on paper and pencil, and I really suggest you do it as well. It keeps track of things. So 5 times 6, well, that's 30. Okay, so that answer 5 times 6 equals 30, and that 30 already has a 0 in it. That doesn't mean I have to ignore any of the zeros that are over here. I'm like not going to ignore these zeros because I already have a 0 over here, because that's 5 times 6 is 30. So now I still have to think, well, it wasn't 5, it was 50. So that's 10 times greater, so that's going to be 1 more 0. But it wasn't 6, it was 600, so that's actually 100 times greater, so that's 2 more zeros, right? 1, 2, 3. So we said 5 times 6 was 30, and then we counted our 3 zeros, 1, 2, 3, and we get 30,000. Okay, so base 10 multiplication. Practice it out. There'll be some quizzes on it. Ask questions. Do your work around it. I appreciate your time. Let's keep up the good work together, and we will see you at the next video.